Tom, it is a pleasure, my friend. When we haven't caught up in years. When was the last time we had a conversation?
Wow, probably 3, 4 years ago.
Okay, man.
Like at least, yeah. That's
And
it's wild.
how old do you know?
20. Gonna be turning 21 in August.
All right. And what are you doing with yourself? You a student? You working?
Yeah, right now I'm a pre-med student, even though I'm not gonna go to med school. Um, I really just wanted to keep my options open, so I just took all the classes to have to if I wanted to become a doctor. If I Now I'm just gonna go into a different path. I did what I like saw myself doing, and that's I'm gonna go into nursing after this. But and then I work full time at a place in Rhode Island, and I take like summer courses while I'm in New Jersey, um, and I do that with school
Hell yeah,
and
dude.
with work here. I mean,
Cool, man. All right. So we got a bit of history. How old were you when we first started working together?
um, I think I was 11,
All right.
and I
So
was overweight, definitely.
My name is Thomas, and my New Year's goal was to push a 400-pound squat.
50-foot slippers, bro.
But
9 years ago. So a question I always like to ask people anytime I do a conversation like this is like, I help men who struggle with weight loss. That's what I do on LinkedIn. It's what I do in my private Facebook group. It's what I do with my life. And I always ask anybody I sit down and talk with, like, why do you think I wanted to talk to you for the benefit of these men? What is it that you think I see in you that could provide them value?
um, one thing for sure was when I didn't even know who like I really was at like 11. Like you believed in me when like I didn't even believe in myself. And like you kind of everything like I built off of did stem from then because like I always like think of myself as two different people. Like when I lost weight, became like a different person. And I just like I never like think of myself as like the same person from like 13 on, which is when I started losing weight. And prior to that was when like we had most of our experience together. And you always gave me like the positive motivation when it seemed that like the rest of the world wasn't giving me that, and the rest of the world usually doesn't. And you just have to block them out. Like you used to always like block out the haters and like stuff like that, you would say. And it was just like always those foundational keys for sure that you always like believed in me, like no matter what,
I love what you
never
said.
judged.
I love what you said there, dude. I see a lot of guys have this illusion that they can stay the same person and just lose the weight and then their life's better. Like, oh, no, I don't need to change. I just need to lose 80 pounds and then I could just keep being the same old me. And I'm curious, what's your experience with that? Is it possible to change your body that drastically without changing who you are at the core?
It's literally impossible. It'll happen if you want it or you don't. Um, when started losing weight, I had like the same ideas in my head, and it was like never like good ones because when some people can, I truly believe that some people that are overweight or are like out of shape to what we see like physically can be happy, but you have to be like okay with who you are. And most people who are desiring weight loss aren't very confident in themselves, so they wouldn't be, at least from my experience, they would want to lose the weight, become more physically um, in tune with their body. And instead of staying the same, I'm trying to just gather my thoughts. I had a whole energy drink right before this, and I'm like scattered. Um, so when I was like heavier, you have like this mindset that like you're never gonna be like up to par. But when you start losing the weight, you start transforming the way you think, and it's like almost like this delayed gratification. And when I like delayed my gratification, I saw how great it could be. It's like, oh, like you start losing weight, you start changing, like, oh, if I don't eat something right now and I could delay this for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and like how much better the reward is if you take the time and you actually learn to wait for like that really, really good desired role, you're gonna be able to change your mindset in that way of let me stop always obsessing over like what's happening right now and let me look a month, 2 months, 3 months into the future and see where the reward could come in then. And I think like that's like the biggest thing with changing like who you are. It happens, and like that mindset of like future instead of like let me just like gratify myself right now is gonna happen, and that changes who you are completely.
Incredible, dude. So maybe it's different for everybody, but I'm curious your opinion when it comes to like the chicken or the egg. Is it a physical transformation occurs and that triggers an internal transformation? Or is it an internal transformation occurs and that allows for the physical transformation? Or is it not that universal? It's kind of to each his own, depending on what path they walk.
Definitely for each his own.
Mm.
For me, it was physical then mental because it was almost like, oh, I look so good, but why am I so sad? And like it's just like that like idea, like you always like really like a number on a scale to like your happiness at a certain point because you start losing weight and you're like, oh, I'm getting like compliments, like I'm starting to feel good, instead of like negative like things that people are saying, like those same people are coming over to you and they're like, oh, like you're doing great, you're doing great, you look so good. And like sometimes you don't believe that because it happens so quickly. Like you live your whole life thinking that. So I think for most people it is physical then mental because it's you lose the weight, but like you have to process what you actually have done, and you have to almost transform your way of thinking into like almost now that I'm looking like this, I need to almost transform my mind of thinking into that type of person. So I think it's definitely physical then mental for most people, and then the mentality comes like through the work. I think it's just that one start. The start is like from somebody else's motivation gives it to you.
That's how it was for me, for sure. When I was a sophomore in high school, I was just lost. I wasn't overweight by any means, but I was a very internally sad, lost, lonely kid. And the track coach plucked me out of gym class and was like, "You got to do the track team." And at that time, I had never seen any potential in myself in any direction, but he saw this belief in me and he kind of like lent it to me. I was like, okay, well, you believe I could do it. Sure, I'll show up. And he encouraged me when I was there and I kept showing up and he kept encouraging me. And then all of a sudden I noticed, oh, I just got a little bit better. And it just steamrolled into this mammoth. So I know what you mean of like you borrow somebody else's belief temporarily until you develop your own. I'm really curious because I see this so much with the yo-yo dieters who lose the weight and then they put it back on because their internal dialogue, their internal state never catches up to their external. You mentioned I look good, the scales says I'm doing good, but internally I'm still so sad. I'm curious about your experience with that. What was that like? How did you overcome it? How did it change?
Um, I feel like it's your mind is in ever changing cycle. So like it's like once you think like you figured it out, you're like, oh, I figured out my mind, I'm happy now. It's like your mind's just like, all right, now like we're gonna change and we're gonna make you like we're gonna find a way to make all those coping mechanisms sad for you now. And like it's always like you always have to be figuring out. It's like this impossible puzzle for the rest of your life that you have to be like always on top of. And when I didn't really even know what was going on in my mind or even wanted to figure out until sophomore year of high school. And I read like it started with reading, really. I've always been interested in reading, and I started with more nonfiction books. So I was always reading like things that almost made me more sad, like more like Sylvia Plath and stuff like that, and which I recommend those readings because they are very influential and it makes you feel less alone in the world that somebody else has gone through those experiences and you can read through them, but you got to take them with a grain of salt. You can't be like, all right, I'm going to emphasize my emotions by reading these books. But I started reading like other books that actually one that you gave me prior, which I don't know if you remember, this was my junior year of high school. I came back to CrossFit during for like a month or two during like lacrosse, and I had to like stop it because I was getting too many injuries before, and it was like taking like physical toll, like and I just wanted to be like ready for the season, so I just like stopped, time commitment, and I just like was like just doing gym, like working on like physical stuff. But I was with I listened to like Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and that helped a lot. And I remember like it was like 6 a.m. on the bus, and I used to have like my headphones in, and I was just like a 16-year-old like listening to like chapter by chapter of this book. And it was like he like put something in you, like David Goggins, that like just was like ridiculous. It was like whatever your excuses, it's not valid. Like like just go to work and you'll see the difference. And I was like, that was when I was like the most like mentally like, all right, like let's go, let's go, let's go. And like I put all like the anger into physicality, which was great. And it's one component of it that you need, but then you need like also like that mental peace component, which came like my sophomore year. And I was like running like 7 miles, like, and just like at night, like freezing cold weather. I was like, I'm gonna put on like a tank top and shorts so I have to run faster so I get home before I get frostbite and like stuff like that. I was like just like going crazy, but I really cleared my mind sophomore year. I started reading books and I was just like, how can I clear these thoughts up?
Dude, I love it. And I went through such a similar phase where I kind of I leveraged a little bit about of that self-hatred in a way where I would do similar challenges to myself, where you just put yourself out there. Like if I run for 5 miles in one direction, well, now I don't have a choice. I have to do the 5 miles back. So like you saying running in the middle of the night with a tank top, like you give yourself no choice but to get back. I went through a very similar phase for a few years, and I think about that book Can't Hurt Me. I'm not a very good reader from a point of retention. Um, but one thing that sticks out with me viscerally from that book is the concept of stealing souls. I am such an extrinsically motivated person who's so competitive that when he talked about stealing souls, I'm like, oh, that's me right there. Like his drill sergeant, no matter what they put him through, trying to make his life miserable, he knew he could make their life more miserable and steal their soul by showing no pain. And I brought that into every competitive venture I ever did, whether it was a CrossFit competition, obstacle race, whatever it was. I showed up and I'm like, if I can just make these people believe that this isn't suffering for me, it'll break them. And that game in my head motivated the hell out of me to train, to work out, and it gave me a good self-esteem. It was necessary while I bridged the gap to find some grace for myself and some love for myself.
During like CrossFit, like a CrossFit competition, like if like you were, let's say, like in a dead heat with like another guy, because you used to come in first or second every single time. It was unbelievable. It was, you were always on the podium every time you would go. If you saw like you were in a dead heat with somebody, what would give you, you believe, that little edge above them, in like a way of like just like into, like you said, you were like external motivating. So what did you see, what would you do physically or mentally?
By the day of the competition, it was over already. I I lacked I lacked a level of self-belief or self-confidence that I over prepared for everything. So every I appreciate the compliment of getting first and seconds in all the competitions, and I can attest to it. It's true, but it's because I selected my timing so well. I chose the ones that I were most advantageous to my skill sets. But what I would do leading up to the events is I would study the event. I would study the event like an absolute mad scientist. I would train the event more than anybody, and I would show up so much more prepared than the guy next to me that, let's say it was a 12-minute workout. I knew what 7 minutes was going to feel like. I knew that at that moment you were going to be getting dragged through the pits of hell. The guy next to me didn't. So when that 7-minute mark hit, the conversation in my head every time would be, if I feel like this right now, imagine what this dude feels like. And that was my solace. That's what like comforted me to know, like, oh wow, if I feel like this right now, I feel real bad for the sucker next to me. And all I had to do was just keep a straight face, look calm, and everything took care of itself. What I never did is I never looked at somebody else and was like, oh, there's my opening, now I'll go. No, I was always going. My entire conversation was, don't let them know that I'm also struggling. But if anybody listening wanted to apply that to anything in their life, it's like, over prepare and visualize exactly what executing is going to be like, so that when you're in the moment, whether it's the boardroom giving a presentation or some physical event or anything, when that key part hits where most people crumble, you've visualized it so much, you've felt it a dozen times already, that when it happens, all you have to say is, yep, this is what it's supposed to feel like. This is what hard feels like. This is how it's supposed to be. And if I feel like this right now, oh, God bless these other guys, because they did not prepare for this moment like I did. And that always gave me like a moment of rest. But truth be told, I didn't do anything special on game day. I just kept my shit cool. All the work was done ahead of time.
It's like the basketball players that like when they hit like the game winning shot, they're like, I practiced that shot a million times. And it looks like they just like hit it, like, and like you're like, oh my God, like it looks so like the easiest thing, but they've shot that shot like 20,000 times prior to it.
Dude, that's it. And we look at other people and we see extraordinary, right? Because for, Michael Jordan to do what he did, that is extraordinary for me. But the only reason he could do it is because for him, that was normal. And I think the same thing happens when it comes to health. Like somebody looks at the way I live my life and they ask me for advice. And then before I could talk, they're like, oh, but I can't do what you do. I'm not like you. It's like, well, what I do is normal to me. And what you do is normal to you. I know you think I have this extraordinarily high discipline and every day I'm hitting home runs and I'm a superhero. No, I just changed what was normal for me. There is nothing in my life that I do that feels extraordinary, that requires a lot of discipline. It's just this is my normal. I practiced it so much. So the illusion that some people have of, I'm going to temporarily do a bunch of extraordinary stuff and I'm going to lose the weight and then I can relax and maintain. It is such a sad myth that people fall for. And that's why they think they're failures. That's why they think they can't lose weight. They try this extreme diet protocol and exercise 7 days a week, thinking I can do this extraordinary thing, get to a finish line, and then I can relax and be ordinary again. Fuck no, dude. I'm going to clip into this a video of you pushing a sled when you were 11 years old so that people can see the tenacity you had, but also, the reality of the situation, what your physique looked like. And if you don't mind, I'd love to share a current picture.
Of course.
And my question for you is, do you feel like you're doing anything extraordinary in life right now, or does it all just feel ordinary for you?
That's the thing I love is I actually have a story from yesterday, and it always happens to me, and you always have to be reminded that. And it's you're doing extraordinary things just normally. And I went to the gym with one of my friends, and he needed it advice and almost like guidance on form and stuff like that. And first of all, like it's such like a cool thing that like I'm the one now that like people come to. Like you already, like I always dismiss it and everything. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll help you in the gym, like whatever. But like it is cool that like people go to you. Like I used to be like if like you saw me in eighth grade, like I was the last person anyone would be like, you want to go to the gym? Can you come and like show me how to do something in the gym? Like that just wouldn't be me. But like now, like it's like I just go over it. But I was in the gym with him, and I've been like lifting progressive overload in the gym for like now like 5-6 years. So I'm at like 120s on incline for dumbbells, and I just do it. And like
Dude, that's another level. Are you serious?
yeah, but
Wild.
it just happens. And like I started off with like 30s at like retro fitness 5 years ago, and like I was doing those, but it just like all of a sudden just compiles, and then like you're doing it and you go into the gym every day, and like people don't really like turn and like look or whatever, and you're going by yourself, you have your music playing, you forget like all like the things that you're doing. And then like I just like started working out with him, and I was like, this is how you do it. And I'm like talking, and like while I'm like just lifting the weight, and he's like what are you doing, dude? Like that's like insane. Like, and you just like you have to stop for a moment sometimes and be like, wow, I'm actually doing like really incredible things on a daily basis, and I'm not even like aware of it. it it's like those like little moments where you just have to stop. Like everybody, I remember hearing this, it's like you're climbing a mountain, sometimes you have to stop and look down at how much you've climbed. And it is always a good reality check.
Dude, that is so impressive. And I'm curious. I know a big thing that I always struggle with is comparison. And when I notice, like, okay, this is the new thing I want to work on, I look at who's the best at it. I look at where I'm at. And it's almost like this hurts my growth more than anything because it's like defeating. It's like I can't bridge that gap. Like if 13-year-old Tom saw somebody incline dumbbell pressing 120s and you went over to the dumbbell rack and you could like struggle to get up the 30s, how how can you explain to somebody, first of all, nobody wants to know, it's 5 years. Like, I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, we don't have any secret pills. It's 5 years of doing a little bit out of your ordinary every day to create this extraordinary gap. But what was your process like that you didn't fall victim to comparison and feeling like, oh, I'll never get there? um I'm just curious how you stayed focused on the day in, day out tasks without distracting yourself with the outcome, because that's where I see people blow up their ship, is they just focus on the outcome and then they quit because it feels farther away than they want it to be.
you it's falling in love with like the process of it. It's obsession will be talent every single time. It's that simple. Like you become obsessed with what you're doing. And that's what I did. It was, and there's certain points where I've learned to manage that, like, and like almost like take all that drive and like compile it where I need it. But there was times where I was like doing two a days and like waking up at like 6 a.m. and just like going to the gym, then work, going to school, working, and then like at 9 p.m. I would go back into the gym. And like that's great, but at the same time, it's not sustainable. Like you're not gonna be doing that till you're 90 years old. So you have to find a balance between it. But I've used that obsession of I'm just obsessed with the action. Arnold Schwarzenegger said one thing. He was like, I go to the gym like I eat. Like it's like I have to go to the gym. Like that's like what my mindset is. Like I need to go to the gym. Like if I don't go to the gym like 4 times a week, even like towards like the 4 mark is where I see like the break is like if I'm going less than 4 times a week, I'm just like out of it. Like if I notice it or not, I'm a little bit more depressed than I normally am. I'm like a little bit more out, but it's just such a part of me now that that's the only way to make things sustainable is like just make it a part of you. It's like a part of my life now. There's no changing it. I'm so used to it at this point. I love going to the gym. I've made it like a happy place for me. Like you need to find like I found like gyms where like people are like good and like nice people. And then like I also go to gyms where like I don't talk to anybody, but I found like that peace in me in that gym where it's like you, the gym itself is like the reward. I love going.
What was your relationship with the gym when you first started? Because a big obstacle that I recognize with a lot of people who need the help is it's intimidating. It's not where they see themselves. It's almost against their identity. And even to a greater extent, whether they like to admit it or not, they have bought into stereotypes of almost hating on gym people. And it has become like an antithesis of who they want to be. Like for their own protection defense mechanisms, it's like the people who say gym is life. It's like, well, those guys are tools and I don't want to be like them. And it's a defense mechanism for sure. But did you ever have trouble feeling comfortable at the gym? And how can you help somebody who is anti-gym bridge the gap and realize that maybe they can find themselves there?
Yeah, it's like this like confusing point. There it is a great thing and like people are right about some people, sorry, that are like always like in the gym and like I've had people be rude to me at times. So like when I was like overweight and I wasn't in like the best shape, like I would have like a lot of people like come over to me and like say things like like or like I would hear like somebody like talking like about me at like points like and when I wasn't doing so hot in the gym, like I was like more heavy, like weighed more and stuff like that, and people are gonna just be assholes to you at times. But what I've noticed is that you you have to, for like people like us, like or like people that have overcome like all these things, like people look at like people like if you see a guy like lifting 120-pound dumbbells, you're like, oh, he's such a douchebag. He's probably like he's probably just like a frat bro, like fucking doing like steroids or something. Like they like try to dismiss it, but at the same time, like I was in somebody's shoes that is looking like that and just trying to like give like a synopsis of like my whole personality just by giving a glance at who I am. But I what I always do is like if like I see somebody that's like in the gym and like maybe isn't like in like the best like shape necessarily, I'll go up to them and like give them like a little bit of motivation. And I'll just be like, you're doing oh, I see you in the gym like a lot, dude. Like you're doing good. I see like you're like progressing. And even if like you don't mean it wholeheartedly, that means the world to that person because that's gonna get them to be like, oh shit, like I'm going to the gym a lot and I'm doing like these things and like I'm just trying almost like when people discourage you, you have to take those motivations and almost kill their vibe from it. Like be like, yeah, no, like you're not right. I'm gonna prove you wrong. And then almost if you're in that position where you don't need to necessarily get that motivation, you give it to other people and you just try to make them the best versions that they can be. Just keep like a positive environment around you. And if you keep going up to people and you keep like introducing yourself to like people that you feel like can benefit, maybe like they'll feel more comfortable the next time they go into the gym because they know like at 5 o'clock every day you're going to be there and like there's like always like that one person that you're going to have that conversation and have that community with in the gym, so maybe that could be like a motivating factor for them to get up and like go to the gym instead of almost like I'm doing this all by myself.
Dude, you're so right. I've been working out for 16 years. And to this day, when somebody gives me a nod in the gym or a fist bump or it's like respect to what they see in my workout, it is the greatest feeling in the world. And you would think like, Kev doesn't need that. Like he's been fit forever. This is what he does. Dude, it changes my week. Like I will walk away with a high for a whole week where like a stranger noticed that the work I was putting at the gym was special. Like you're so right, man. For the person who that's great that we can give that gift to others.
Mhm.
But let's just say Bob's listening right now. And Bob's like, I've never been in the gym. I don't even know what clothes I would wear. I don't want to be seen there. What if I see somebody I know? I wouldn't even know what to do. My biggest fear is doing something wrong and people seeing it. Maybe I'll go walk on the treadmill, but I'm definitely not going to lift weights. I don't know how to do any of it. Like somebody who's got those thoughts going in their head, what do they need to know? What do they need to think? What do they need to feel to just break that resistance? Because you and I know what it's like. Once you break the resistance, you find this momentum if you just continue to break the resistance. But what do they need?
it it literally comes down to just breaking everything down into smaller and smaller steps. So even at this point, like going to the gym most days out of the week, I'll simplify it to I really don't feel like going to the gym right now. I'm just gonna pack my gym bag. And then I pack my gym bag and I'm like, F it, we're gone. I just take the bag, take my keys, and I'm out the door. It's just breaking it down so simply. Like, let me pick out like the baggiest clothes I have, whatever I feel like the most comfortable in, like the most like I'll like put on like a 3X hoodie and like 2X sweatpants and like tie them up real tight at the gym. And like, I'll just be like, oh, I feel comfortable in this. I don't need to be wearing a Lululemon onesie fucking or something like that. And I don't need all that. I just need to feel what I'm comfortable in, get in the gym. 99.9% of people are not going to be watching what you're doing. They're all focused on themselves. And even if they are, and the people that are going to be like that are so miserable with their own lives that they can't even focus on their own because they have to direct it all towards somebody else. And those people are very rare when it comes to the gym because most people aren't in the gym for that reason. They're in the gym for reasons that are similar to people that want to get better and just want to keep improving. So you're not going to interact with them much. And even if you do, don't listen to them because 99% of people don't even like them because they're not going to relate to them or anything like that. So they're the outsiders in the gym community. So don't even focus on them, and everybody's going to focus on themselves. And whenever people see real gym people, whenever I see or talk to them, they're always happy to see more people in the gym. You
Mhm.
want to see people improving and you want to see everything. So I really encourage, I want to see more people improving themselves in the gym. It's like the greatest thing. So for me, it's almost more uplifting to have those people in the gym. So I would encourage people to get out there and go for sure.
Dude, that's tremendous. Growing up, every time I had like trouble with a bully in school, I'd come home and my mom would be like, the reason those kids behave like that is because they have a lot of their own issues. They have a lot of trouble at home. And I heard my mom say this for years. And I had I figured out what she was talking about like 3 years ago. It took me to like 27 until I was like, oh, I get it now. Like hurt people hurt people. So the people that I'm afraid of that are going to be mean to me, that venom that they're spitting is because they're being crushed by life in one way or another. And you're 100% right. The 0.01% of people at the gym, they're going to be that is causing 100% of your fear and discomfort of going to the gym. They're not dangerous. They're suffering. Really, it's poor them. All right, dude, I got a couple more questions for you. You mentioned, and I think this is very important for people to know, that it's a never ending chess match with your mindset. It's like there constantly has to be personal development. I hear a lot of people believe like, okay, I'm going to get to this weight, then my life's problems are going to be solved, and then I can maintain. And they have this idea of maintenance being like this thing where you're in a lounge chair on a beach with a martini, like, oh, I did all the work and now I just get to lay back and cruise the rest of my life happy as could be. I'm curious today, what are the challenges that you face? What's the personal development that you do to keep growing? And how much of a myth is it that there's this finish line where you just get to say, all the work has been done and now I get to relax because I'm here?
Um, Even if there is a finish line, you don't want there to be one. That's one thing I've learned. Like if like you like if you have like one goal in mind, goals are what give us hope. And like I like narrow all my happiness down to like hope. Like that's one word that I love because it really is what keeps us motivated with everything in life. If you have hope and faith that it will happen, you can achieve anything you want. I always have hope that the next day is going to be better than the day before. And everything starts with like one idea and just it stems like you you need to have hope to continue and to be great. You need to have that idea and you need to have something. And once you hit that one goal and you hit that finish line and you're like, that's great, find another goal, make it a little bit better. You're never going to be number one in the world at every category. Like it's impossible. So, but one thing you can do is try your damn hardest to be number one in every category. So it's every category, at least that you care or you want to put the effort into. So it's like you have, let's say your goal was to be 200 pounds. That's great. You hit 200 pounds. Maybe let's say I want to be 17% body fat. Hit that goal. And then once you're that, then maybe there's a mental goal. Let me read 17 books. The next year, 20 books. The next year, 23 books. It's always this, let's keep going and keep progressing. And like just little by little chipping at it, chipping at it. And that right there, that finish line will only regress if you just stop at it. It's just gonna you go to the finish line and then you're like, all right, great, let me stop. You can take a break, you could look around a little, but you got to keep going or you're gonna just like slip off the mountain. Like if you're not going forward, you're probably going backwards. There's no like really maintaining. Like you need to be chasing forward.
Incredible, dude. It's not one dimensional thing of let me just lose this weight. It is personal development in as a whole. If you're not working on your fitness, you're probably not developing yourself as a man. If you are developing yourself as a man, fitness is one avenue of it, and it's never ending. All right, dude. So something that I always ask everybody who's had success is if we were to reverse engineer it and try and replicate it for the next person who hasn't found the momentum yet, I'd love, and maybe this is something you've thought about, maybe it's not, but if you could take us back to 11-year-old Tom and just talk about the milestones or the benchmarks that were almost like, this is when I got that piece of the puzzle and this mindset shift, and this is when I got the next piece and this mindset shift, and all of these pieces were integral. Could you label them if we had to reverse engineer it and try and create a path that obviously somebody has to do the work for their own and they got to believe it their own and they got to find it all on their own, but is there a way that we could know what to look for to know that somebody is on the right path?
I would say when it started, it was more of I started my like journey out of more of like a fear of the unknown. When I was 14, I went to the doctor and I remember weighing in and I was 294 and I was like never saw like a number on a scale. Like I think like scales only go up to 300 pounds and I was damn near the end of it. And I was like, shit. And then she was like, all right, like let me check your like blood sugar. It was ridiculously high. It was like in like the 200s, which is very like high into the diabetic range. And they told me to go to a like diabetic doctor and endocrinologist, and they told me I had diabetes and like full blown, not even pre-diabetic. I just had diabetes. I was like, gosh, like they were like, you could change it with diet, but if you're going down this path, like it's not good. So my first goal was let me get, let me prove them wrong and let me not be diabetic. And I'm gonna change this with diet. And right away, 3 months later, I went right back to the um, doctor and I weighed 241. And they, I went into the doctor, same thing. 3 months later, it was January 8th. Every January, like 8th, I like celebrate because January 8th, 2017 was and I wrote my college essay on it. And this was like the breaking point of it. I went out for a run right after I found out. And I was yelling at my mom like the whole way back because I was angry and I had like all these internal issues. I didn't know how to express them. And somebody was like telling you that you have so many major complications at such a young age that like you didn't even like I was so young and not like there yet that I didn't even know what to do with all this energy. So I tied up my shoes. I went out for a run. I maybe made it like 100 feet, and I just like was out of breath, dog. I was like wanted to run a mile. I was like, oh my god, and I just like sat on like the side of the road, and I just started hysterical crying because I was like a mile, like you couldn't make it down the block. So what I did was I got up and I finished like the 1 mile and I timed it and I got a 17:30 and like probably like near walking pace. And I was like, let me try to run under a 10-minute mile. And every day I would get up, just keep running, keep running, keep running, keep running. And then eventually 2, 3 months go by. I was running like 9-minute miles, kept losing weight. And then I just saw like all these things transform. And the one thing that was so great was if you're on the right path, people, it doesn't matter what people are going to say or what people do. People are always going to give you compliments, or they're going to give you something along the way, or like you're not doing bad, you're good. Like, or like maybe they're giving you negative criticism. People are always going to, they have a ton of that. They're always going to, so you can't really listen to other people necessarily. But when you start to see that, you've built goals for yourself. And even as small as they are, as big as they are, and you start to see like this progression in them, and you start achieving these like little goals and these little things, you have to just stop and see and be like, all right, like I achieved this. I'm down the right path because I'm progressing forward, no matter how little it is. If you're 305 pounds and you go down to 300, you're on the right path because you're going into the right direction. So whatever that milestone is for you, or even if you don't hit your goals and you wanted to be 270 and you were 300 and you were 290, you have to take that with a grain of salt because you still lost 10 pounds. Maybe you didn't hit your goal, but you were on the right path. So I think whatever you do, as long as you're going down the right path and you're not going backwards, that's what you have to look for. And it's not really about hitting that like exact goal. It's about just moving forward necessarily. That if I had to go back in time, it was always like I never really regressed backwards. It was like something that like I always proud proud my pride myself on, was I never stopped really. I always was, even when I like was going slow, I was always moving slightly forward, like even the littlest bit, like even if it was just doing a little bit more than I did yesterday. It's all about doing a little bit more than you did yesterday. And you just start to see that like yo-yo dieting or like yo-yo like lifestyle is just, oh, I'm gonna read 100 pages today. How about like five, and then like six the next day, and then seven the next day, and then maybe eventually you'll get there, but don't try to do it all at once. It's very slow and progressive. Consistency is the way to go.
Bro, that's beautiful, man. So what's the next goal that you're aiming at right now?
Right now, it's been a goal that I've had since I started, and it just like never seemed to like come to fruition, but it's starting to see its way through. Don't want to jinx it, but I've always wanted abs like my whole life. Like would always see like popular people, and they were like fucking, I would like see you would be doing a CrossFit competition, you could see like the striations in your obliques, and I was like, what the fuck is this like guy doing? I was always like, I like always wanted it from a young age, and I was probably like the furthest point. I kept losing weight and I just never saw. And I now like I was like, all right, like I made it a big goal for myself about like 6 months ago. Like really like just like went back, and I feel like I've hit like so many goals, but I've never hit that one. And now I'm just like starting to see like little by little, like you just start to see your upper abs come in. You're like, all right, that's cool. And then like maybe like a little bit of your lower abs. Now I got like a like a solid like four thing going. And it's like and it's like the upper four, like the extra skin on like the bottom of my belly still needs a little bit of work, and I got a couple of 10 to 20 more pounds to lose to like be like close to visible abs. But it's just all about progressively getting forward, and like that's a huge goal for me. And once I hit it, it's going to be like holy shit, like I've achieved everything I needed to do for my mind physically, and that's going to be a cool day.
Dude, that is unbelievable, man. The 294 was the highest you ever saw?
Yes, on the scale, but I remember like the a couple of days before I like did like a thing to lower my weight too. It Checking my weight at that time was like checking your grades as a bad student. It was like you never did it, but you knew that if you checked it, it was going to be terrible. So what I did right before I went was like I like didn't like eat like for like a week before it, or like I like ate very little. And so I was definitely over that 300 mark, at least at a certain point. But 294 was the most I ever saw on a scale.
What is the scale saying now?
205 probably, but that's I'm at like the lowest body fat percentage I've been at.
So you've been
So
packing
it
on
was
muscle,
like,
dude.
yeah, that was like the hard thing to do, because it was always like I went down to like 170 at a certain point, but like I wasn't like I was losing muscle, I was losing all these like things, and I was just like, why am I following like this number? It's just gonna lead me to be less healthy and less like fit. And my goal is to be like 190 like lean, but I'm not gonna like tear like through my muscle. I've worked so hard to build it that I'm just like slowly like chipping away and like getting gaining muscle, losing a little. So it's like this hyper fixation of like what like weight is at a certain point was like a huge thing for me, because it was like I had to get my mindset out of that. And then it was just like I always was like so determined to keep lowering it, and then like I lowered it to like a high margin. Like I lost like 125 pounds at a certain point, and then I was like, you know what, like maybe we should like eat a little bit more, gain the muscle, and now like all my lifts are way higher and I feel a lot better, and probably I like am like the most muscular that I've ever been.
Wild, dude. All right, man. So we've covered a lot. I guess I'm curious, is there any part of the story that could be valuable to anybody that we haven't uncovered yet?
It's so hard. It's so hard like for every single day to do it, but you're gonna have hard either way. And you either choose to do something hard and you get a reward from it, or life's going to give you something hard. You make it easy for yourself, life's going to give you a lot harder of a ability. So choose your hard, keep working. That's your hard, and you're going to see yourself reap the benefits, because if you let life choose the hard for you, it's going to be a lot more difficult, and the consequence, it's going to be hard either way. So I'd rather just pick it, choose it every single day, and you're going to see, you're not going to even understand who you are. It's the most beautiful thing when you start to see like yourself progressing, and like your family, you're able to give your family more love because you love yourself more, and you're able to give your friends more help, and you're able to learn more, and like even educate people in certain ways, like from your experiences. It's the most valuable thing. So what I would say is choose your heart.
Proud of you, dude.
Yeah,
Incredibly
proud of you
impressive.
too.
Thanks, man. And I think the people who are going to see this are going to benefit more than you could possibly imagine. Is there anywhere that they can follow you, continue to learn from you? Are you on social media? Do you post about this stuff?
um I'm actually a ghost on social media. I I haven't posted in like 2 years necessarily, but they could follow me on Instagram, and my like direct messages are always open. I'm always willing to answer anybody that has any questions, any advice. I'm very open to discussing nutrition, stuff like that. If they needed help with that um area, if they needed like a quick diet plan or something, I'm always willing to give advice on that. Um, Thomas underscore Valenti on Instagram. I'm always there to help because I'd love that's my enjoyment, just to see people progress. So would love to hear from anybody that needs help.
Absolutely love it, dude. I can't wait for our next call when you're showing off your six pack.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna come on with no shirt.
Thomas Liver King Valenti.
Yeah, try anything's possible.
That's it, bro. Dude, thank you for your time, man. This is absolutely awesome. Appreciate you,
Yeah,
brother.
thank you too.